What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Gooner channel, and there's only one person we're going to talk about today, and that is, of course, Benjamin White, Benny Blanco, Ben Tan. This morning, the long-awaited news that he had in fact signed a 4-year contract extension and was incredibly happy about it. The club released a video that showed just how popular he is with his teammates. Now, I know it's a PR stunt, but I think they were a nice touch. And what you saw from player after player was a genuine love for Ben White. The recurring theme was a highly competitive, driven to win, wants to do well, will do anything for the team, and is a warrior. This season, he's been an almost ever-present, playing through pain, playing through injury as he was before the trip away to Dubai. And in the calendar year of 2024, there are few players who have played as well as Ben White. He is versatile, intelligent, cultured, great at reading the game in a way that very few people are. And his 2 assists in the game against Brentford were so important in getting all 3 points for us. He is a player at the top of his form and entering into what would likely be his best years. A really key part of the reason that Arsenal's defence has gotten even better than it was last season. And I think, arguably, the best right-back in the country. Certainly with Kyle Walker's physical form, not quite what it was, and he is 33 after all. I said a few days ago that if Garet SouthGate didn't pick Benjamin White for the England team, it would be a travesty. And so to find out a little bit later in the day that Garet SouthGate had in fact omitted him, I was initially really upset about it because there's just no explanation for it. But then Garet SouthGate came out and did this interview. Just quickly, before we carry on with the video, this, I think, is an ideal spot for you to click like if you like this kind of content. It does the channel the world of good. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I really think you should. Anyway, back to the video.
Clearly on form. I can't sit here and say he doesn't deserve to be in. John McDermott, had a call from Edu last week to say that Ben didn't want to be considered for England squads at this time. For me, that's a great shame. He's a player I really like. He's a player that we took to the Euros when he was at Brighton, a player that we took to the World Cup. I spoke to him post-Qatar because I was keen to pick him, and there was clearly reticence on his side. I don't know fully why that is, but I have to respect that. I want to leave the door open for him because he's a good player, and I think he's a player that can make a difference for England. But he's not available to us, and so the only other thing I would say is there is no issue between us at all. And also should say there's never any issue with Steve Holland, because that has been sort of mentioned in articles, and I don't like that. You know, people can talk about me and say I have to accept that things get said and are false about me, and for whatever reason in this role you have to almost stomach that. But I'm not prepared for that to happen for a key member of my coaching team, because that is not the reason that Ben is unavailable for selection.
The plot thickens. Now, to take us back to when Ben White first had a problem in the England team, it was in 22, after being on the bench for the first 2 games of the World Cup. He inexplicably was sent home, or decided to leave to go home, for what was then explained as personal issues. Now, at the time, I remember thinking, well, the truth will come out. But it's been 1.5 years, and we still don't really know. The Athletic have speculated for some time that this was down to a verbal disagreement with Steve Holland, one of Garet SouthGate's main coaches. But in that interview, as you can see, Garet SouthGate says he doesn't know White doesn't want to play for England. And this just doesn't sit right. Something about this doesn't feel right. How can Garet SouthGate not know why Ben White apparently asked Edu to call him a week ago and say he didn't want to be considered? Of course, one of the things about Ben White is he's enigmatic and he's aloof. And of course, he's done interviews in the past where he's talked about not really watching football and not really being into football. His father hates football, and it doesn't matter how well he plays, he wouldn't notice. So is this just a case of an arrogant younger generation of football player who doesn't care about putting on the England shirt? Well, that doesn't really square. I mean, let's look at this.
Got a phone call. Got told the news. I was out for dinner. I didn't really believe it. Obviously speaking to Dan, and he told me all the news and when I was going and all that, it was obviously unbelievable. And put the phone down, rang my mum straight away. Sat down there, cried. Mum was crying, mum, my dad. Had all my sisters there, and I just sat and cried for about an hour. Couldn't really believe it, and I don't think it's settled in yet. I didn't really think that I would be called, and thought it was a bit too late, because I've heard that you get called like way before it, and you know. But I obviously didn't, and you know, when that call did come, I was over the moon with it and shocked, really.
So how do we get to the stage where somebody who is crying for an hour out of the joy of representing us, and after all, look, in the world of football, representing your country is the pinnacle of achievement. So what Ben White's thrown away today is not necessarily even just playing for your country, it's playing for your country at the European Championships, one of the prestige tournaments that so few players get to play in. Arteta said after he was sent home that he understood why Ben White had left, and he was standing by him, and he's spoken often about how much he loves him, just as I'm sure we all do. I know that when he first arrived, there were many people who thought he was a waste of money, that we'd been stitched up by Brighton. But I think he's shown nearly 3 years at the club, playing right back, centre back, and sometimes in midfield. He's one of our best players. So is this a case of Garet Southgate hiding some of the details? Of course, this is divisive. People want to believe that Ben White is just this kind of aloof, arrogant guy. Personally, something else has happened there. And it speaks to a lack of character from Garet Southgate if he won't come out and say what it was. He's chosen to defend Steve Holland as though there's no chance it could be that. But too much about this doesn't make any kind of sense at all. Behind all the intrigue and the guesswork of what might actually have happened, there is a much bigger thing at stake here, and that is the forthcoming European Championships. We're going into it with only one recognised right back. Trent Alexander-Arnold's a midfielder now. Gomez and Konsa may well be able to play at right back, but it's not their position. So we're leaving behind arguably the best right back. He's scored 2, created 4. They're kind of attacking figures that players like Anthony dream of. As the relationship between England and Ben White deteriorated so badly that this young man, who was so proud of his achievement in becoming an England player, has decided to turn his back on it. And what does that say about the England setup in general? What if this happens to other players? What does it reveal about the feelings in the squad? It's conceivable to me that Ben White just didn't feel like he fit in, and he is a player who is proud, and as his teammates say, he's a warrior. He's not afraid to stick up for himself, but he hasn't come out and explained what's going wrong. And that's another weird one for me. Maybe that is the right thing to do and not to try and throw anyone under a bus. Perhaps he does care enough about England not to derail any possible chances. I'm really keen to hear what you think on this one. Is Ben White being overly stubborn? Should he just accept an England call-up? Has he decided to focus on the run-in for the Premier League and see what happens in the summer after that? Is he that committed to the Arsenal he doesn't want anything to get in the way of what could be a fantastic run-in to the end of the season? I'm not necessarily upset he's not playing in these friendlies, because any chance we have to wrap him up in cotton wool, or as is more likely, probably wrap him up under a sunbed somewhere or on the Algarve, or wherever he wants to go, he's entitled to do it. His performances on the pitch are all I care about, and he has been immense for us. But I can't help feeling, as an England fan, in the major tournaments at least, that a tournament without Ben White to call on when we're bound to need him leaves us dreadfully exposed if Kyle Walker somehow picks up an injury before then. If Garet Southgate does want to go into the history books as the first England manager to win the European Championships, he's going to need to patch this up. He's going to need to find a way to do it. And one of the things that really stood out to me was how he mentioned in the press conference that sometimes players don't want to play for England and he takes the blame for it. Well, he's very definitively decided not to do that with Ben White. So despite saying that he doesn't know what's wrong, he has chosen to be open about this situation and put the blame squarely on Ben's shoulders. Broad shoulders, though. I don't know if that's going to bother him or not. But I do hope that even though he's not playing in these 2 friendly games, that when the time comes, he is selected for the squad. Does go. I don't even know who Steve Holland is, to be honest with you. And I'm not necessarily that impressed by the coaching at England. So couldn't we just ask Steve Holland to stay behind and pick Ben White instead? Let me know in the comments how you feel about it. Overall, today is a fantastic day because I think it's just another instance where we've managed to secure the long-term future of a player who's really important within the team. And if the video is anything to go by, hugely popular with his teammates. And a kind of player that doesn't come along very often. Beyond all the England discussion, I just want to say how thrilled I am. Ben, if you're watching this, well done for signing. Here's to 4 more years at least. Silverware, trophies. Ben, if you're watching this, well done for signing. You're a legend in the making, and I can't wait to see how much more you can still grow, because it's been season after season of development and improvement, and I'm thrilled you're an Arsenal player. Now, let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree, and until I see you again, be lucky. Lots of love.